Hello, Divine Souls, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Journey of Soul Mastery. I am your host, Rebekah Cortez. Today we're going to be speaking about spiritually healing the core of self. If you're new to this channel, the emphasis is empowerment, empowering your states of existence. So let's get started. Facing your inner core. The three subjects we're going to be diving into today is acknowledging through facing the pain trapped in your inner core, embracing yourself to heal your pain and end your suffering, and embodying the right to be free of the internal pain and suffering. So let's dive in. Understanding our inner core, acknowledging the inner child within us all. We don't really get to the core of healing until we get to the root of the trauma that caused the pain that keeps us imprisoned in states of suffering and that govern over our unconscious states of existence that are significantly critical roles in the realities that we experience externally. Everyone starts out as a brilliant, illuminating reflection of their soul, the self that completely understands their authentic truth and expression. Children are tuned into the frequency of universal love and energy. Children do not require being taught about connectedness and love. We all resonate with that frequency because the presence of ego has not been constructed and anchored within the unconsciousness of our physicality self. The presence of ego does not start to develop until the moment when a child is confronted with an experience that is absent of the high frequency of universal love. Love, as stated in some of my other videos, is the highest frequency vibration energetically. And when children are subjected to ego's version of love, which is a dramatically lower vibrational frequency, this creates great internal energetic conflict and confusion on a physicality level. In any abusive environment or any environment that creates the element of unacceptance, a child does not have the capacity on a mental or emotional level to understand what is happening. They just feel deeply the absence of that high frequency they resonate to so organically, and it has a very dramatic impact on them internally. Trauma is housed within the core of each child, and that core remains even as we mature into adulthood. Children are introduced to ego by the influences they have around them that play a critical role in shaping ego, because the role models around them are most assuredly operating from ego states from some varying degrees. The damage that is caused by others pushing their beliefs onto others in a manner that takes from them their right to free will, to choose their own path of truth and follow their own hearts, and not accepting this beautiful being and its inherent divine right to be its own unique vibrational expression, are just a few examples of the more common negative imprinting we are subjected to that influences the development of ego states. Ego represents all states of unauthentic potentiality that are in opposition to our authentic light and truth. This imprinting starts to shape the adopted falseness that constructs the ego self, which, just like our physicality self is a fragmented aspect of our higher self, ego becomes a fragmented aspect of our lighted physicality self. The more we're exposed to egos of others and have experiences that create pain, this internal trauma with being conditioned into conformity and conventionality becomes our suffering, because the third dimensional aspect of existence does not resonate with the being who has just incarnated here, that is still very attuned to universal love, light, and truth. None of us are born into ego. Ego is shaped because of our authentic truth being distorted due to all the negative conditioning and imprinting that is in opposition to our divinity of truth. It would even be very accurate to state that the ego is the reflection or extension of the inner child who is still in pain, and as a result, the self we acknowledge as an adult externally is too suffering because that kid is still in pain and is the one in control through the ego's states of unconsciousness. We need to heal the inner child to love at the capacity we understood when we were children, so we can return to the wholeness of authentic soul potentiality, to be awakened and expressed, to be in higher service to self and all. The dark cycle of ego patterns has created deep karmic energy within many ancestral lines. To elevate and ascend to vibrational frequencies of consciousness that resonate with universal light and love, ego agendas must be dismantled, and the hearts of humanity must be lighted with the all-spark of authentic divine truth. This defines the core of the purpose of the ascension process. Many beloved and lighted beings have committed their will to be in higher service to the dismantling of these karmic cycles, dismantling illusions created and put into motion through dark agendas. They incarnate into the darkest voids to shine their light and heal karmic patterns. This is an honorable path and a choice of all lighted beings to leave their paradise of pure light and love in very high-dimensional existences of the multiverse and willingly go through the incarnation portal of birth to bring their light and high frequencies of light and love, to anchor love in this third-dimensional dense world. So let's discuss a little deeper the 3 points that'll lead us towards healing internally. The first steps towards healing. Acceptance of self is the first steps towards healing. You have a right to be free of all that is in opposition of your light. You have full control to release that pain and end the suffering now and forever. Only you can provide yourself with what is necessary to promote healing and start the letting go process of all the trauma held within your inner core, which is represented within your unconscious states, those internal deep-seated states that have shaped your ego. Another aspect of healing in the first steps is acknowledging that inner child self or inner core self that is still in pain and causing suffering to your current states of reality. We have all suffered moments as children and still as adults when we have not been fully embraced and accepted. The authentic expression of our light was not embraced and accepted. And this happens because the influences coming from others around us are so deep-seated in ego that they just don't have the capacity to value the freedom and the authentic expression that they see coming from us. They have themselves stepped so far away from their own light that their egos are stifling their ability to acknowledge, accept, embrace, and value your authentic expression of light, because they don't even accept and value their own light and accept their own authenticity. So when we don't accept ourselves, we can't step into a place that fully accepts others either. We just fall into this line of conformity where we start to just act like everyone else just to gain acceptance. But this is just an illusion of falseness, because if we're not truly presenting ourselves from a place of authentic expression, then we're just putting on a mask for the world just to gain acceptance because we're desperately grasping for a stronger sense of belonging. Unfortunately, it's just a matter of time when the heaviness of this falseness starts to take a toll on us. We can experience all manner of negative reality states like depression, helplessness, anger, stress, over-emotional, emotionally aggressive, abusive to ourselves and others, and more. In time, this mask will fall off because we will experience so much adversity that we'll get to the point that we're utterly sick of the suffering, and we will choose to suffer no more as a desperate attempt to gain back some balance and peace before we feel like we're just going to explode. At this point in your life, or sometimes several times throughout your life, you'll be standing at a crossroads that will present you with the opportunity to make a choice. You can either choose to continue down the same road, denying yourself the right to be authentic in all you present externally, and disempower yourself internally by rejecting paths that allow yourself the opportunity to be true to yourself. Or you can choose to elevate yourself on a higher path of vibrational frequency that mirrors your organic vibrancy and liberate yourself to express yourself and follow paths that fill your heart with joy and experience a life of peace and not turbulence, suffering, and pain. So many people are afraid to follow their organic interests, those activities and things that you're most drawn to, because they place too much stock into trying to follow a mold of what the world defines as successful, instead of allowing themselves the right to define what their own state of success actually is. The way one individual defines success is polar opposite of the way another individual will define success. This is our right to choose. No one has the right to judge another on how they define success for themselves in their life. No one has the right to criticize another or look down on someone just because they don't place the same value on an external possession or other aspects like they do. We are not all meant to follow the same paths, have the same jobs. Most of the jobs that people have, they highly dislike, but they think that they have to do it because this is what will make them more accepted and favored in the world, and that's simply just not true. It's just an illusion. So what does this mean in relation to healing the inner core of self? The first aspect of healing the inner core of self is acceptance. Not acceptance from external sources, but the deep-seated principle of self-acceptance, liberating yourself from the confines of external approval, starts by building a solid foundation of self-acceptance. When you reach the point that you no longer require the external approval from others to live your life according to your own unique frequency of authenticity and express your own unique qualities in a manner that honor your heart, you will experience the liberation that comes from freeing yourself from living according to standards and expectations of others, be it parents, peers, or just the influences the current models as a whole in the world operate off of. To get there, you must travel into the past and start remembering and connecting to the unique expression you once were. The second step towards healing. The second step towards healing is embracing your inner core and the essence of your purity that has been polluted and distorted, that resides in that internal depth of your core, call it your inner child, or simply just call it your purity. What you choose to refer to it as is not as important as it is to acknowledge and face it. You must embrace your core essence within, who is still suffering from the trauma of the past that was subjected to the pain because of non-acceptance, and approach this journey with love, compassion, and an attitude that supports your right to be free by letting go of all the pain and suffering. We must embrace with empathy and compassion the essence of our nature that requires love, acceptance, and validation that has been neglected and rejected by others. You are the only one that can heal yourself to this magnitude. You must elevate to a conscious level that embraces self-love and worth to connect to this level of self-healing. Compassion is not weakness, and neither is embracing your emotions and allowing yourself the right to express those feelings that are bottled up. Facing all the pain and allowing yourself the right to let go takes an immense amount of courage. Love yourself and give yourself encouragement to heal, because you are worthy of this liberation to be experienced on the other side of healing. It was only ego-driven illusions that was set into motion to keep people from acknowledging and facing their emotions and learning how to manage emotions from an elevated perspective. We can dismantle these illusions of falseness by facing the truth of ego-driven fears, by embracing the simple fact that our fears are cultivated from trauma held within the core of the child still in pain. We can exercise our divine right to let go and offer ourselves permission to just be ourselves in all the beautiful and unique expressions of light that we truly are. Being different has a great purpose. We are not meant to be limited, for we are limitless beings of light. We are not meant to fit into a system of conformity and only express ourselves in monistic ways. We all have immense abilities that are meant to be expressed in dynamic and different ways to connect that and magnify and elevate light, love, and universal connectedness. Differences create more unity when utilized through the lighted intentions that promote a community lifestyle mindset. The only reason competition, jealousy, and envy exist is because internally there is a child that thinks it's not good enough due to unacceptance that created trauma, and this creates the ego states. The adult who constantly seeks approval, constantly is driven to be something that it's not in a desperate attempt to be accepted and loved. And if that same adult who is in this desperate state observes someone who has what they want or doesn't know how to achieve it, ego gets envious and jealous, creating the need to be competitive to feel better in some way about themselves internally. We must heal the child who is suffering in trauma states to be able to let go of the falseness and express our authenticity and truth. And this too heals karmic cycles for the collective whole. The third step towards healing. The third step in healing your inner core is embodying your divine right of empowerment to allow yourself the right to live a life of liberation that is free of suffering. Healing the inner core has 3 levels of healing. It's mental, emotional, and physical in order to release all trauma. In this stage of healing process, I'm going to be focusing most on journeying back in time to your younger years. But this process is also relevant. It can be practiced all the way up to your current age. Because even as an adult, most people still suffer experiences that cause pain and trauma because the foundation that they're operating from is still stemming from fear and the lack of self-love and worth. The further you venture away from your light and authenticity, and the longer you allow yourself to continue down paths that are not empowering you and embodying self-love and worth, the more you will continue to experience lower states of reality that cause distortion to your joy and peace. Masks have many faces for many different people. It might be that you've just given up and settled for less because you're losing hope in yourself and just simply tired of not getting fulfilling results from your efforts. It might be that you have completely numbed yourself through substances as a desperate attempt to hide from all the turmoil internally. Masks have many faces, and we put these on as an attempt to gain some kind of relief, but all is illusion and disempowers you more. The more you face and allow to be released, the more liberation you will experience that will lead you to reclaiming states of empowerment. This stage of healing requires that you consciously value yourself and your deepest desire to be free from all that keeps you anchored in ego and negatively attached to trauma and pain that causes you to experience numerous levels of suffering in your daily life. To elevate your state of consciousness to a higher frequency of love, you must journey into the past experiences that require attention to initiate the process of healing through your right to let go and free yourself of the pain. There is no experience too small or large that should be ignored. Remember that you are addressing your inner core, which is the essence of purity, much like a child. You must get on the level of a childlike perspective, not childish according to the adult perspective. You must approach this from a standpoint of non-judgment and not exercise criticality. If you do not fully approach with a willing and loving heart this process, if you have any skepticism in your mind about it, if you look at this child or core self and it reveals an experience that seems petty and childish, and you judge or criticize on any level instead of validating your right to acknowledge the emotions and approach these feelings with love, you will not resolve anything that will promote healing and your ability to let go. Instead, what you'll accomplish is spiraling into deeper states of suffering. It would be like pouring salt into an already painful wound. You must up-level your empathy and compassion to addressing this essence of self with pure love and acceptance that promotes a freedom to express all levels of pain. We must address and face all aspects of trauma that created the false core beliefs we are currently attached to that drive our intentions and actions from a foundation of fear. When you connect and sit with this inner child or this inner core self, and you allow it the freedom to release the locked up pain, all the experiences that created trauma and contributed to your ego state will rapidly surface and come to the forefront for you as the adult self to address, reassure, and validate your core right to let go of all that is in opposition of your divine right to love and be loved. If you cross paths with a child that was crying and in pain, you would do everything in your power to protect and ensure the safety of that child. You would do everything in your power to help end that child's suffering. Your inner core or your inner child is no different. Just as you would not simply walk by with no compassion in your heart for a physical child who is crying and in pain right in front of you without trying to assist this child in every way possible, This is how you also need to view the healing process of your inner core child. You cannot simply ignore your inner core essence of self with no compassion, love, and willingness to help in every way possible. The more you do, the more turbulence and suffering you will experience externally until you face this inner core self and heal what is suffering internally. All negative and ego-driven states of perception will be instantly elevated when you allow your inner core the right to express and voice the experience that caused trauma. More specifically, it isn't so much about remembering and dragging yourself through the traumatic experience itself, but rather approaching it from the standpoint that you acknowledge the elephant in the room within your core and lightly skim the surface of the trauma itself so you can face the most important aspect, which is telling yourself that it's okay to face these feelings and express your feelings and validate this essence of self's right to feel the way you do. Sit with that core of self that is still crying and suffering and talk to her or him like you would a child needing nurturing and love. This is you we're talking about, not some stranger you don't know. You identify with this pain every day, so you might want to consider the importance of finally sitting down in meditation and sitting with this core essence of self and have an actual conversation regarding all the things that you're both suffering together over. This healing process is the most powerful form of healing because it is helping you to not disassociate from that inner core of self, as if now that you're an older adult, it suddenly isn't that important to face. This is a powerful connection and purging process. You're consciously choosing to love yourself and value your right to validate all that you still experience pain about, and this path affects your daily life unconsciously and the decisions you make. You are worthy of experiencing higher states of consciousness that promote an existence that is fulfilling, joyful, peaceful, that you're not looking to others to provide you. You must do this so you end the dysfunctional cycle of looking to everyone else for strength, love, comfort, instead of yourself reclaiming the brilliant spark of light that you are, that is being shadowed by all the pain. When we're really struggling and we require healing, we can call to our angelic realms, our lighted allies of light. Archangel Raphael is a powerful healer, and his energy promotes love, compassion, and acceptance. Archangel Raphael presents us with the supportive energy to inspire our divine potential to heal the shadowed aspects within our unconscious that suppress our ability to love, feel compassion, and embrace acceptance. Archangel Raphael inspires that we take a loving approach to our self-development and encourages us to shed dysfunctional attachments to exercising judgment and criticality. To embrace self-love and worth, we need to understand the importance of elevating the internal way we process experiences and elevate the way we manage ourselves. If we are over-focused on exercising judgment, this leads to guilt and criticality, which leads to shame. And then we'll not be able to see the value in any experience or anyone, especially ourselves. We need to elevate our internal processes to promote love, to have eyes that see the beauty in ourselves in all things, wisdom to understand there is always a deeper meaning behind experiences, and with a heart that embraces compassion and empathy for those still suffering in pain as well. we first must extend these spiritual qualities to ourselves before we'll be able to extend them to anything external. Just as attitude is key, so is acceptance. Acceptance will elevate your ability to break the dark programming of judgment and criticality. Love is the bridge that leads us to healing. I'd like to introduce a very powerful practice, the cord cutting meditation. The purpose for cord cutting is multi-purpose in its ability to assist us in making more room for light to flow through us by removing the unwanted that shadows our light. It also assists us in finalizing the process of letting go of old programming and old patterns that are in opposition of our authentic truth, to end the dysfunctional cycles we remain trapped in when we're operating from ego states of falseness that promote dark and negative programming and really only serve to reinforce negative imprinting and conditioning. We must not stay stagnant in mindsets or patterns of the past. We must, out of love for ourselves, choose to move forward and elevate our awareness so we can manifest fulfillment, peace, joy, and allow love to flow limitlessly through us and around us. The key to this cord cutting practice is based on a sacred love for self, a deep longing for the suffering within to end by doing the work and staying committed to self and seeing your value and worth, for expanded awareness so that it heightens your states of consciousness that resonate with the frequency of unconditional love and healing. As with any practice, you cannot attach expectation that simply because you cut a cord means that there will be no more required work and effort on your part. Life is for the sake of experiencing, and opportunities of change that challenge you and your realities of existence are meant to expand and elevate your states of consciousness. So no matter how elevated you become, there will always be work that is required, because this life is a journey of self-mastery and returning to our divine wholeness. This is a finalization in the letting go process of that which has been faced, and the lessons have been gained that the experience was serving to teach us. If you have not faced all that is required for the sake of learning, then you can't elevate and expand spiritually. In cutting a cord under conditions that you're expecting that in of itself to just end everything, it's not going to happen. The cord will remain until you learn all that was intended for you to embrace, to strengthen your respect, love, strength, confidence, and value for yourself. This practice is not to be utilized under ego-driven states of motivations of hostility, anger, judgment, criticality, revenge, jealousy, or any other lower vibrational state. This practice is to be respected as part of the healing process that's required in order to let go of what is not serving your highest purpose and deepest desires, to align with a deep-seated intention to elevate into higher states of enlightenment, expanded connectedness of light and love by shedding all that shadows potentiality. But what does it mean to cut a cord? What is a cord, and why should we cut it? A cord represents an ethereal link to an experience or contract that is stored in the energy body. There's two types of cords. There's positive lighted chords and there's negative shadowed chords. Positive chords are easily identified because these chords represent lighted purpose, and these will have a very glimmering silver or very luminescent color about them. Negative shadowed chords represent ego, dark programming, old patterns and cycles of experience that do not serve our highest purpose anymore. They represent contracts that have been fulfilled, negative attachments to past, and represent what we're moving away from in our lighted journey of expansion and growth. They are easily identified because they're dull, shadowed, dark gray, or sometimes black, and have no luminescence to them at all. I have created a link that'll take you to a printable or downloadable PDF that goes into great detail about this practice from start to finish. All of the preparation work that is required to create sacred space before entering into this meditation and this practice. I highly encourage you to look to the drop down in the description box and click on the link and download or print the PDF form that I've provided. Thank you for listening. Please support this channel by subscribing and clicking the bell to receive future notifications on upcoming videos.